I'm Julie Evans. I'm the Executive Director of Roots and Roads Community Hospice Foundation, and our vision is to transform the end-of-life experience into the final act of living well. We've been attempting to do that we're into our 25th year. We'll be 25 years old this August 25th, so that's super exciting for us. But the ways in which we go about trying to fulfill that vision is by providing financial assistance to low-income hospice patients, also through end-of-life education, much like we're doing tonight. And then a couple of years ago, we created an online resource called the Crosswalk, which is accessible through our regular website. And it really just helps walk people from time of diagnosis of serious illness all the way through deciding what treatments might be right, whether, hospice or palliative care, caregiving, all the way through death and bereavement. And we really wanted to try to pull together resources so that they were all in one place, because we know when we're facing illness and end of life, times are hard enough, right? We don't have enough bandwidth to try to figure out all these things. So if you haven't visited that, we would love for you to do so. And next slide, please. Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our individual donors. You make these sessions possible for us. You make it possible for us to keep these free and available to anyone who would like to join. So I want to thank you so much for that blessing. And then I am going to turn it over to David to, I think, talk about our sponsors for the entire series.
So you can see on your screen that we have several sponsors who have helped out to make this whole year-long series possible. So we're especially grateful to Sunset Hospice, to the Legacy Foundation of Southeast Arizona, and to Intermountain Centers. And tonight we want to send out a special thank you to Desert Diamond Casino. They are sponsoring tonight's event and making it possible for us to have this very important conversation. And we are so grateful that we can do that with Dr. Ned Norris tonight. So thank you to Desert Diamond Casino. And as we mentioned last month, this whole year-long series is offered in honor of Monica Gonzalez, who is Jennifer Arvizu's sister. She died late last year, and we remember her throughout this year. Not only has she been an important part of the Roots and Roads family, she has been an amazing volunteer for many years, helping us with events and putting things together. She just was always there, offering her talents and then also that beautiful smile. So we would like to take a moment now and invite whoever would like to, anybody here tonight, to enter the name in the chat of your loved ones that you would like to remember. So we'll just take a moment and allow people time to be able to do that tonight. Now I have the honor of introducing our presenter. Dr. Ned Norris Jr. has served the people of the Tohono O'odham Nation for over 4 decades. He has served multiple terms as chairman of the nation and has also served as vice chair. Other positions include service as the assistant director of the tribe's children's home, court advocate, children's court judge, Court of Appeals judge, Indian welfare specialist, assistant director of tribal social services, and director of tribal government operations. I encourage each of you to read his full bio on our website to gain a better appreciation of the scope of his service and work. Through elected office, professional positions, and appointments, Dr. Norris has worked to strengthen our community at the local, regional, and national levels. Time and again, he has offered his knowledge, experience, wisdom, and gifts to improve the lives of individuals, families, and communities. We are grateful for his presence with us tonight and look forward to his presentation and our discussion. Dr. Norris, we will turn things over to you now.
Thank you, David. Thank you for that introduction. I really do appreciate that. And I just wanted to also thank a few folks, well, for one, the opportunity to sit with you this evening and share some thoughts, share some experiences, share some experience that relatives and other family members and friends have gone through in preparing for laying a friend or a loved one to their final resting place. But also I wanted to thank Reverend John Fife. I think David, his brother, Reverend Fife, was the one that recommended me to David, and David reached out and asked if I would be willing to have this conversation with you all this evening. So I just wanted to acknowledge that recognition, a recommendation from Reverend Fife as well, a person I've known for many, many years as well, and I do hope he continues to do well himself. In having this conversation, and I'm really wanting to, I'm hoping that this is what this is a conversation about from an O'odham perspective on death and dying. You know, we all experience this in our lifetime, and you know, we lose friends, we lose family, we lose husbands, wives, partners, children, grandchildren over the course of our lifetime. And I think many of us demonstrate how we deal with that in different ways. You know, I wanted you to start out by acknowledging that there are some 556 federally recognized tribes throughout the United States. And it's important for folks to understand that tribes are unique in their own way. And they're, you know, we're unique in culture, we're unique in beliefs, we're unique in language. We're unique in how we see, experience, and deal with our life's journey, and how we see and experience death and dying. And so I think it's important that just because the O'odham do this way isn't necessarily how other tribes or other indigenous folks deal with address death and dying in their own culture, in their own tribe. Many tribes look at the process of dying as a spiritual journey, and we believe, at least in my culture, that the deceased spirit or relatives spiritually is present with us even after dying. They're present with us in different ways, in different experience that we might have in dealing with their passing. Many of you, or some of you, may have seen what's referred to as the man in the maze symbol, which is, if you Google Tohono O'odham Nation or Google man in the maze, you'd be able to see that, see what I'm talking about. But just looking at this symbol, this man in the maze symbol, We believe that it portrays, or it portrays a person's journey in life. You'll notice when you see that symbol that there's an entrance to at the top of that symbol with a human-like figure standing at the entrance of that maze. And that symbolizes a person's birth, or person's birth. And that once we're born and we begin our journey of many trials and tribulations as we journey through the maze of that man in the maze symbol, where eventually we end up in the center, which is typically the end of our life. But throughout that maze of our lifetime, we experience many things. We experience good things, bad things, family things, just different, as I said, trials and tribulations. When we talk about end of life, many of I like to say that many O'odham use both what I'll refer to as modern or today's medical assistance that's available, and also use a traditional form of medicine through the work of the medicine people. Many times, as we do when we go to a physician, a doctor's office, or a clinic, or hospital, that physician is typically able to diagnose through tests and so on and so forth as to what your medical condition is like, and what ailment is there that is contributing to your sickness, to your illness. Likely so, though, too, there are medicine people and that have the same ability through the gift that they've been given to provide treatment from the medicine person to the person experienced. So many of our people utilize the modern way of taking care of ourselves through physicians, hospitals, doctors, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, many of our folks will utilize the services of a medicine person at the same time. Sometimes the medicine person, when they've seen you and they perform their I'll call it their diagnosis or their treatment on you, are able to vision what happened to you as to why you're experiencing that difficulty. And sometimes, unfortunately, the medicine folks would say, well, somebody put that sickness on you for whatever reason. They might be jealous, they might be just don't like you, or whatever the case may be. But I just wanted to share that there are two types of treatments that we experience: your more traditional modern way of seeing the doctor in hospitals and so on, and then the services of a medicine person. Typically, when a person reaches the end stage of life, usually it is when the doctor will speak to the family and say, there's nothing more we can do for your family member from a medical standpoint. They did everything they can from their use of resources that they have, whether it's medicines, whether it's hospitalization, whether it's operation, or whatever the case may be, and the person just never fully recovers and ends up at the end stage of their life. Um, and many times when that happens, a lot is going through the O'odham family member or member's mind about what is going to happen next, or what do we need to do next once our loved one has passed, has passed on. But even before that point, many times when a family member receives this type of word from the doctor, usually whoever is and identified has identified as the medical power of attorney will need to make a decision whether to discontinue any type of life support that the physician may have been placed on the patient, or may call in family members and say, this is what the doctor is telling us. The only alternative is to make our family member comfortable, and might end up either staying there at the hospital or ICU or wherever the case may be, or may end up getting transferred over to a hospice facility. But even prior to the person's passing, the family member may call in. We'll call family and we'll call friends and say, hey, so and so is on their journey to the afterlife. That's what I call it, the afterlife. And many times family members will begin to trickle into the room at the hospital or the hospice center or the ER or the ICU unit to pay their respects to the family that's there and to the person that is at the end of their life, of their end stage life. Many times they'll call a traditional singer to come in and sing to the family and sing to the person that has been diagnosed as their end stage life process and is beginning their journey to the afterlife. Many times family members will call in, most of the time with a Catholic family, they'll call in a prayer group to come in and do a rosary, say a rosary for the person before they are deceased. And a lot of times or there are times, I don't want to say a lot of times, but there are times when the facility, whether it's the hospital, the ER, the ICU, or the hospice, don't understand that this is a process that we go through when we have somebody that is journeying on to the afterlife. And a lot of times their own policies do not allow more than a handful of people in the room, or will not allow the use of a medicine person to come in and provide the blessing, or may not allow the rosary group to come in and do a rosary, or may not allow the traditional O'odham singer to come in and sing, which is really unfortunate. But I have experienced times when a loved one is passing when the hospice said, no way, it's against our policy and we're not going to allow you to do it. Because you could end up with, if they have a limit to 2 people in the room at any one time, you could have anywhere from 2 to 10 to 15 to 20 people in that same room, but they're all there out of respect to their loved one or their friend that is moving on and going through the end stage of life process. So I think that also I wanted to share that there, once the person has passed, obviously they're going to take that person to whichever morgue is is available or that the family identifies. But then the process of preparing for funeral, preparing the body for for the funeral services, digging the grave. You know, I don't know how many folks out there actually dig their own grave still today, but in my culture, the men have that responsibility to dig the grave, whether it's your family member or your friend or whatever the case may be. And so there's grave digging that needs to get done. Typically, the immediate family will call a meeting and announce that meeting to others, whether it's family or friends or whatever. They identified the day, the time, and the location of this meeting, and they'd have this meeting, and all these folks would gather and offer their respects to the family, but also would volunteer to assist the family in preparing for the service, preparing for the funeral service. And you know, it's just a blessing because, you know, and I believe our own experiences have told us that this can be a very traumatic experience for folks to have to prepare the funeral services for a family member, for a loved one, or even for a friend. So when folks come together, and they come together in a big way and offer whatever they can offer, is it food? Is it their labor? Is it financial support? Is it moral support? Whatever the case may be. That's a time when a lot of our folks come together in out of respect for the deceased person and their family, and offer whatever assistance that they might be able to provide. And then after, typically, and it doesn't happen as often as the elders in the past, the elders have told us, but typically, when a person passes, it's customary to have their death, their funeral, their services, and their burial within 4 days of the day of their passing. And there are a lot of things that contribute now today as to why we can't honor a lot of times the burial within the 4th day of the person's passing. You know, so, but typically, if the elders tell us, if someone passes, you try and get their everything prepared and done over with by the 4th day of the day that they passed. The other things that I wanted to share with you, when a meeting is held, not only do we discuss and share, you know, there's a lot of sharing with friends and family about the individual, and reminiscing about the good times and some of the bad times that they've experienced with that particular individual, and what that person liked, what the person didn't like, how they were a funny person, or how they were you know, whatever about them. There was a lot of time for that to be shared at this meeting, but also a time for decisions to be made as to when the funeral is going to happen, what is going to happen at the funeral, when is the wake going to happen, how is the wake going to be conducted, who's going to be the pallbearers, who's going to carry the casket, who's going to make the cross. A lot of times, somebody that's close to the family or close to the deceased person will offer their service to make the cross for the individual. And so and then, you know, there's other things that need to happen as far as preparing. You know, even going back to when I started about um, a person's diagnosis that they're at the end stage of life, and people are coming to pay their respect to that person at the hospital or the hospice or the emergency room or ICU. At that point, many family members or friends are coming and talking to the person, talking to them, and just sharing with them their appreciation for their life, sharing with them their appreciation for maybe something that that person did for them during the time that they were alive, and basically talking to them as if they were having a conversation with them and sharing. But then that also happens when at the burial, or even at the service itself, at the wake service. You know, people will come and pay their respects at the wake or at the burial, and will talk to the person lying in the casket as if they were having a conversation with them, and again thanking them for things, and appreciating them for the life that they led, or the life that they gave, or the service that they provided to them. And you know, I jokingly, I hope she understands this joke, but I jokingly tell my wife, you know, don't be letting people coming into me when I'm on my deathbed and telling me things that they should have told me when I was when I was healthy and alive, you know. But that's kind of what we do. You know, we talk to our people that are on their deathbed and on their journey, and then we talk to them again when they're lying in the casket. You know, and so when we're at the burial site, typically it's the male that will carry the casket and into over the grave, and will slowly lay the casket into the grave. And that's typically done by the men, as the men are the ones that would have dug the grave for that person as well. And prior to the men throwing the dirt into the on the casket into the grave, and filling it up, they would fill the shovel with dirt and hand it, or have it available to folks that are at the graveyard who want to sprinkle some of that dirt, bless themselves with the dirt that they have in their palm of their hand, and then bless the grave with the dirt, and then sprinkle the dirt into the grave. And so that individually, folks will line up and do that before the men actually start throwing the dirt into the grave and filling up the grave. And then once everybody has done that wants to do that, they'll fill the grave. Once the grave is full, then it's typically the women's responsibility to place whatever floral arrangements have been brought to the wake and to the service, are laid on the casket. One of the things that I think is important in O'odham culture for us to understand is that when a person dies, we believe that it's typically takes about a year till their first year death anniversary comes, which is the day of the death the following year. That it takes that period of time where our deceased friend, our deceased relative is still journeying their way to the afterlife. And maybe they're not sure what happened with them, or don't realize where they're at or what they're doing. But typically we realize that, hey, it's going to take you a year to finally um, arrive to that eternal life place. But also know that even after the burial, there is 4 days of rosary that is conducted for the following 4 days after the burial. And that in itself is intended to help the person begin their journey to eternal life, to the afterlife. And then when the year comes up and it's time for an acknowledgement or a celebration again of the person's life, the first year that they passed away. Then another rosary, maybe a mass, a rosary, singing traditional songs, prayer groups, choir groups are invited to the anniversary service, and another feast is done. People are fed who come to the anniversary. And again, it's a time for family and friends to reunite and recognize the year's loss of the year passing of that individual. The other thing that I hope is important to people to still practice, to still do, is that because it's a year after the passing of one's life, typically the personal belongings of that individual remain as is. You don't get rid of anything. You leave as much as you can the way it was when the person left us, and that you just leave it there until the first anniversary. And then once that first anniversary comes in, then you can dispose of whatever their personal belongings, maybe their clothes, maybe their other items that they acquired over their lifetime, that someone may want to give to others, or give to a family member, or just give away. So what I hope I've described to you is really a process, and I hope I shared with you some of the cultural, some of the traditional, some of the things that we do, we believe when we have a loved one that has gone on to the afterlife. But also, it's important for us to annually, on the day of you have an All Saints Day and All Souls Day. On the All Souls Day, in the first part of November, is when we also have, we prepare a feast. Families will prepare a feast in their own homes. They will set the table with the feast of food that they have made that day for the All Souls, and they would clean and decorate the graves of their family members that have passed on, whether it was the one a year ago or whether it was several years of family members that have passed on. They would clean the graves, they would decorate the crosses, they would replace the crosses if they were needed to be replaced, they would paint the crosses, they would do whatever is necessary to renew that final resting place. And then again, they would talk to their family members that are there and invite them to their homes that night to partake of the feast that is waiting for them on their table that is nicely plated and decorated and served as well. So we do that on All Souls Day, and I know that's very traditional within the Hispanic culture as well, and maybe some of your cultures as well that you do that. One of the things that I wanted to mention too is that, you know, as people are coming together and preparing the food for the wake service, it's important, and the elders have told us that no one eats any of this food until the food has been served to the deceased person at the table or at a place near the deceased person's body. And I don't know, maybe what we believe is that the food is prepared for them. It's their final supper. And so you prepare the food in their honor, and you prepare food that is traditional in O'odham culture, or traditional, or food that is liked by the deceased person. And you plate that food in a location first before anybody else eats any of that food. And I know that some of the young kids don't understand that or don't want to do that. But it's important for us to make sure that we pass that understanding on to our young people and to those folks that don't remember that or don't do that. So David, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with the audience. I again thank you for this opportunity to be here. I think that there are similarities in maybe some of the things or much of the things that I've said with different cultures, with different and even non-native, non-indigenous cultures that do similar things or do identical things as to what I've described. But it's really a time for us to respect and honor the deceased, but also respect and honor the family who is grieving and going through the grieving process for the loss of their loved one. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Norris. And Dr. Norris has asked that if you do have questions, please put them in the chat and then we'll lift them up to him. And if it's okay, I'm going to begin. As you were speaking, questions came to people and they put them in the chat already. Earlier on, when you were talking, you mentioned about, the question was, I'd like to know what Dr. Norris would suggest to do if someone has put an illness or an ailment upon them. That you had mentioned something about that people may feel as though that was placed upon them, or that the medicine person had said that.
I had that personal experience myself. A few years back, I got very ill, and I was in and out of the hospital. I was in and out of ICU. I was in and out of the emergency room. Well, not ICU, but the emergency room. Doctors were giving me various kinds of medications, and it didn't seem to be addressing the issue. And so I went to see a medicine person, and this person did offered his ceremonial blessings on me. In the end, after this process, did say that somebody put this illness on you, and that he knew who that person was. I responded just to say that I didn't want to know. I don't want to know who that is. I would care not to know. But in answer to the question, the medicine person was the one that was able to remove that spell. I'm gonna call it a spell. I don't know. What should call it a spell. Remove that illness from me, and eventually I got better. Eventually, I you know, the the medicine that was, I still take the medicine, took the medicine that was being offered by uh, uh, the uh, the non-Indian medical doctors, but I also did what the medicine person asked me to do. And in fact, I had the medicine person that I went to go see in cells, and then there was this family here at the Sanavir reservation, where my wife and I live, that knew a medicine person in uh, uh, Hermosillo, Mexico, and somehow, somewhere, he found out about my situation and offered uh, to provide his traditional medical services on me. And it was kind of interesting because he couldn't come to the U.S., but interesting because he kind of used what I'll call in today's terms a proxy. He told someone exactly what to do that came to my house and did for him what he would have done had he been here in the United States. And it was interesting because, you know, I honestly believe that not only did that help address the situation I was going through, but it also helped the person here on the nation help address the situation as well. So I had two fine traditional medicine people that were able to get me through that situation. So I would suggest to the person that asked the question that perhaps they might want to consult with a medicine person to see if they could help you overcome whatever illness you believe was placed on you by a person or persons.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. And I think there are people here who are joining us that aren't from this part of the country. And so, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are different districts in the Tohono O'odham Nation. You live in the San Javier district, but this is a wide range of area that also extends into Mexico. There are people from the nation who are on the other political side of the other side of the political border. And is it still true, Dr. Norris, that there's a gate in San Miguel where people traditionally have been able to go back and forth from Mexico to the U.S., and I don't know if that's still the case anymore, who are part of the nation?
There are identified three what we term as traditional crossings that aren't ports of entry, but have been used since time immemorial, since the border wall or the border fence was established, that are identified as traditional crossings along the 65 miles of international border that borders the south of our O'odham Nation. And there is a heavy presence of border patrol, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at that situation. It can be, there is an opportunity to still use those traditional crossings. There have been challenges, sometimes by the Border Patrol, for folks that are trying to either exit the U.S. to family members south of the border or re-enter the U.S. back to their home here in the United States or on the Tohono O'odham Nation, and have been. So it's kind of it's an up and down situation, and it's really unfortunate because we didn't ask for that fence. We didn't ask for the border wall. The border wall was put there without the consultation of the O'odham when the border line was established, and it separated our people. You know, we have O'odham that live in Mexico, and not necessarily because they want to live in Mexico, but that's where they ended up when they established the international border. Yes, there are still those traditional crossings. Yes, it is there is ability to enter and exit in through those traditional crossings, but sometimes not without a challenge.
Thank you for clarifying. Another question that someone had was that I'm curious why people wait a full year before moving or removing any of the deceased belongings. What is the significance of that year?
Well, one, we as I mentioned, you know, we believe that the person is on their journey to eternal life in that year's time once they've deceased. And so the significance is significant to that acknowledgement that they're still with us for that year. They're still journeying their way to the afterlife. Mm-hmm. And so to simply get rid of their belongings, get rid of their possessions or whether they're personal possessions or whatever, is kind of in a way getting rid of them and not acknowledging that they're still with us for that year after their passing. Yeah.
So much of what you said and shared tonight speaks to an ongoing relationship between people who are still alive and their loved ones who have died. And is there any belief around or understanding around working on those relationships or providing some level of healing that you can do that even during that year period of time? Is that part of a traditional understanding?
I think yes, but not specific to the way you described it.
Okay.
You know, I think that you know, there are times when someone's passing has brought families together that may not have had as close a relationship that they have in the past. You know, and I'll attest to that myself. You know, I didn't know my father. My father was not in my life. He passed in 1985. I was asked by the family, by my 13 half brothers and sisters, which I didn't know I had until after I read my dad's obituary, and whether I would come to the meeting to plan his services. And you know, I've held on to this bitterness about him, you know, up to that time, and I still had that bitterness about him. And I didn't attend the family planning. I didn't. I told him, you know, I don't know him. I don't know what he would have wanted. I don't know what he would have liked, and so no, I really don't have any intention of attending. But my testament to that is that I think that even now, this many years later, 1985 when he passed, and over the course of time since then, I have began and continue to this day identify the family members that are on my father's side, identifying my half brothers and sisters, acknowledging them, and if they're willing and wanting to, meeting with them to discuss our relationship or build a relationship with them. And so, yes, I think that someone's passing does bring families together, does acknowledge in our own minds that, hey, life's too short, and if we don't change our attitudes about how we feel or think about somebody, it might be too late to do anything about it. And so, yes, I think we do in that way.
Okay, thank you. Another question. It sounds like cremation is not part of the O'odham culture. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. And it's I've heard elder O'odham say that's not what we do. That's not how we bury ourselves. But honestly, in the last I'd say in the last 3 or 4 years, I have been to so many funeral services for family members, friends, and others who have been cremated. We just had a cremation of a first cousin of mine in January, and it's not a practice that we have been that we're accustomed to, but that's what the family member asked for. That's what the family member wanted. They specifically said, I want to be cremated. My older sister told me a couple of months ago, I just want you to know that when I pass, I want to be cremated. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What are we going to do? Why are we going to do that? But, I didn't say that. I just said, okay, I will honor your request. And, why is the change there? Why is the attitude different now? And people are asking to be cremated. I don't know, somewhere in the little brain that I have here, kind of tells me subconsciously that maybe it has to do with how they died. Because most of those folks that I've been to their services and the family that have been cremated in the last few couple of years that I've been to, all died from cancer, one form of cancer or another. And in my own mind, I'm thinking, was this their way to get back at that cancer? Is burn it? I don't know. But yeah, cremation is not typically how we bury our dead.
Okay, thank you. And you had mentioned that part of the tradition is that someone may use their gifts and make a cross for the service. Is the Christian faith pretty widely practiced then on the nation or within the people?
Yes, and the Catholic faith is predominant faith here on the Tohono O'odham, amongst the Tohono O'odham people. So much of what we do incorporates not only Catholicism processes or rites of death and so on and so forth, but also a mixture of that with traditional practices as well.
Okay. And another question was asking about the blessing of the dirt that's being placed in the grave. What type of blessing is that? And they were thinking, does this also extrapolate into the spreading of ashes for folks?
And that's where I think probably is derived from. It's a symbolic gesture of ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And then within the tradition, is there a belief in positive and negative, like a heaven or hell aspect of the afterlife?
I have to say that there is a belief of heaven and there's a belief of hell. But we also believe that if you if you turn your life around and live a good life, that you're gonna be forgiven and you're gonna go to heaven. I haven't been into a lot of conversation with my nation, my fellow tribal folks that really talk about hell, not in a serious way. They'll, gesture to you if you do something wrong. Oh, you're going to go to hell, but not in a serious manner.
Okay. Okay. Are there specific traditions on preparing the body prior to burial?
There are times when, and I don't think it's traditional, other than there are some families that want to prepare the body themselves, like clothe the body, wash the body, clothe the body, buy the clothes for the deceased person, and typically that's done by identified family members who are wanting to go ahead and do that.
And someone was wondering if there's a specific significance around the fourth day.
I think it's more symbolic. 4 seasons of the year, things in our culture happen in fours, and I think that's the significance with the significance of 4 amongst all of them amongst our people.
Okay. Okay. Oh, and someone was asking, what happens to the food that's been plated for the deceased?
Once the services are over, it's discarded.
Okay. All right. And you said that the food, oftentimes, that it may be the food that they enjoyed eating that would be prepared as an invitation. Yeah.
Other than our traditional red chili, beans, potato salad, and so on and so forth, somebody might have liked spaghetti, and so somebody will cook spaghetti. My mother-in-law enjoyed pork chops, so every time we have All Souls Day, we prepare some pork chops and plate it on the table. So yeah.
And how do family and community members adapt when restrictions are made by a medical facility regarding, performing the traditional practices?
Well, sometimes it's sometimes they're obviously very displeased with that decision, and sometimes heated arguments unfortunately occur. I'll tell you what I did one time when the hospice center where one of my first cousins was on his deathbed, and they asked me to come and offer him a blessing. And we told the hospice facility, and they said, "Oh no, you can't have more than so many people in there." We had people in there anyway, and I thought to myself, are they going to kick us out for this, or are they going to make a scene about it? Well, they didn't. So
I've seen many situations like that where everybody nods and says, "Oh, thank you." They're just 2 visitors at a time, and then there'll be 20 people in the room.
Right.
And we just pretend like we don't know how to count properly. So it's, yeah. So someone here who's listening says, as a nurse practitioner at one of the hospitals in town, it's often my job to have difficult conversations with patients and families as to whether to stop life-sustaining measures in the context of a poor prognosis. What are some do's and don'ts from a cultural perspective as to how to have this kind of difficult conversation? That's a tough one. That's a big question.
Wow, that is a tough question. I have been in those situations. I can't recall any time that I was offended or displeased or got upset with anything that um, the nurse practitioner or the doctor themselves had ever said. So I I I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a concept of the afterlife, or does it remain a mystery?
I think it remains a mystery. I have my own idea of what it's going to be, what it's going to be like, provided I get that opportunity to get there.
Yeah, yeah. But it's pretty much people don't talk about it in terms of uh, a concept that it's shared. It's more on an individual level of what people have.
Well, we know that we believe that the folks, the family, the friends that have gone on before us will be reunited. We'll reunite with them. We will see them. If my mother passed when I was 12 years of age in 1968, I believe that when it's my time and I enter eternal life, that she's going to greet me when I get there, and other family members that have gone on.
Mm.
I'll see them again. We'll see them again. I like to tell people, if there's the consolation to death, it's that a belief in your heart, in your mind, in your soul that we're going to see each other again someday.
Mm. What is it like to actually dig the grave in this very dry land? Are there rules of how deep it must be, whether the body is put in a shroud or a casket, whether there is a form of embalming? How long does it take to actually dig it?
It depends. The time digging a grave depends on the dirt that you're digging in. I mean, I've helped dig graves in land that was pure caliche, and I remember digging one of my uncle's graves in that type of dirt, and he was a very traditional O'odham person, and we used a jackhammer. And I said to the guys, I says, uh, Uncle Ed is probably turning over in his grave, looking at us using this jackhammer to dig his grave, because that's not something that we do. It's all pick and shovel, digging bar, and so on and so forth. And the body is prepared just as any other. Embalming in a casket, outer box. The casket goes into an outer box. A lid is put on. Mesquite, typically mesquite tree stumps, the width of the grave, are placed on top of the casket. Once the casket is in the grave, a blanket is placed on top of that. Typically, what the old folks tell us is that symbolizes their house. The mesquite symbolizes the roof of the house, and the blanket symbolizes warmth. That's going to keep them warm as they're journeying on.
If someone is not indigenous, would a medicine person be willing to see them?
Yes, yes, I've had that. I've arranged for medicine folks to see non-native folks on times in the past, and really it's the individual and how strong they're going to believe in the ability of that medicine person to help them.
Mm. Does the Tohono O'odham culture allow for hospice at home and let the person pass away at home?
Many times our folks that are at their end, near death, will forego a hospice center and say, just take me home. I want to go home. and those kinds of arrangements are honored. The person is brought home. Maybe a home nurse will come in and administer pain medication for the person during that time. But yeah, we can bring our loved ones home rather than send them to a hospice. That's what they want.
I think it speaks to what you started with about all the different tribal nations throughout the United States and their very different cultural understandings and practices around death and dying and grief. And so I'm glad that someone asked that question.
Yeah. David, I'm gonna need to wrap up here in a little bit.
Okay, we're following your lead, Dr. Norris. So thank you so much for this time. This has been a tremendous blessing for all of us.
Thank you, David, and I do appreciate you and Roots and Roads and everything that you do. And I've gone to your website and I can really appreciate what I see there and the work that you all do. And I may call on you at some point to in the services that you offer. And if there is an opportunity or an interest to continue the conversation down the road, feel free to give me a call. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I hope that we continue this conversation in many forms.
Thank you.
So we'll let you go, Dr. Norris. Thank you. We're going to ask everybody else to stay on so we can share a couple more things, but thank you again.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you. Good night now.
Good night.
Jennifer, do you want me to share a screen or do you want to share this?
I gotcha. Sorry.
Thank you. Because I'm not very good at this part.
Oh, this is me. So that was awesome, David. Thank you. I didn't know the history between Dr. Norris and your dad. So that's Tucson, 2 degrees of separation, right? At the most, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Next month, we will be exploring the grief of pet loss with Dr. Sarah Hogan, and hope you will join us for that. And then in April, do we have another slide? There we are. So I don't know how many of you might be familiar with the Haven, which is a treatment program for women who are dealing with substance abuse, and they have a cultural practice to help those women who, either of indigenous communities or Latina, to sort of journey through that and lean on those cultural traditions. So that will be our April session, which is fantastic. And then next slide, please, Jen. If anyone we still have sponsorship opportunities. So if you know of a business or even an individual who wants to sort of promote their work, we even work in tandem to create sessions sometimes, although I think we're almost all filled up for this year, but it's a great way to kind of get the word out about your business or your practice. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you. So you all will be receiving a survey for tonight's session later, just after we close, you'll get an email. And if you could please provide your feedback on Dr. Norris's presentation, we really appreciate it. We are going to continue our giveaway. So for the first 3 people who respond to the survey, you'll win 2 tickets to Tohono O'odham. So that's the first 3 people. And then, as I'm sure, I apologize, I was late to the party today, but we are so grateful for the donations that we've received in response to tonight's session. If you are interested in donating, we have a few different ways and some shopping partners that we are a part of: Walmart, Spark Good, Fry's Community Rewards, as well as Shop Raise. So if you do any online shopping, you can select Roots and Roads as your charity of choice for that. And then as we all get ready for tax time, we just want to remind you that we are a qualified charitable organization for the Arizona tax credit, and that is a dollar for dollar tax credit for your state taxes. So if you haven't done that, you can make a donation that qualifies for that credit. So you'll want to check that out. And then I think that's it. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you all have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you so much. Great to see your faces. Have a good
Thanks so
night.
much. Good night, everybody.